having strong emotional intelligence skills will be massively valuable in 2026 and beyond. And here's why. With the rise of AI, with the rise of technology, social media, everyone is on their phones nowadays. The world is shifting, right? There's a shift of consciousness happening on the planet right now. And I want to unpack this idea of emotional intelligence and why exactly I guarantee you're going to see over the coming 5, 10 years there's going to be more and more of a demand and a higher value placed on people who have strong emotional intelligence skills. So, welcome to my channel. My name is Trevor Yaglinski. I am a coach and consultant here in Austin, Texas. I'm also a father and a husband. And today I want to share with you a little bit of my journey. And I guess I want to kind of share about, kind of how I came across, I guess how I got better with my emotional intelligence, how I developed my emotional ability, to read people, to read the room, to lead a conversation, to solve problems, for consulting, for selling different services. I worked in sales, consulting, different roles in the past, and I want to share with you kind of how I got to where I am now, which I would say I'm very good at. Like I said, reading people, navigating conflicts, communication. These are all really, really important skills that, with the rise of AI is not going to replace human connection, right? Some people can choose to live in a technology world and just like leave Earth, and that's fine. But this video is for people who understand AI is growing, right? Understand technology is increasing, but this is for people who also understand that we have to develop spiritually, we have to evolve spiritually on this planet, because if we don't, if we keep advancing technology and we keep developing new technologies, new AI softwares, we have to maintain our spirituality. It has to increase as our technology increases as well. And I think in the past, maybe, there's been other civilizations perhaps where the technology was increasing so fast and the spirituality was not. And I think that caused a lot of problems in maybe different civilizations. You can look at Atlantis, Lemuria. So that was a little bit of a tangent, but let me talk about emotional intelligence and let me share with you just a quick little, a little bit about myself and kind of how I got better in this realm of just being able to talk to people. It's a lost skill, and we're not even taught through school how to have a conversation, how to lead someone in a conversation, how to read their body language and their facial expressions and their how they're moving. Like you can tell so much from someone by just being able to read them, be present with them, turn off your own head chatter and focus on that person, and you can tell a lot from them. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, about an hour north of Philly, and I was the oldest of four siblings. We had a pretty chaotic childhood. My dad was a CPA. He worked long hours for about half the year. My mom stayed at home, raised us four. And I look back on my childhood, and I understand, you know, kind of, I guess, how I was wired, because if you've gone through a tough, kind of tough childhood, or very chaotic childhood, you probably were always kind of like sensing the room, like sensing your parents or your siblings. And at least for me, I was the oldest sibling, and I kind of saw my siblings, from when they were a baby to grow older. And I was kind of, I guess, the one to try to like keep the peace, so to speak. And I was always able to read my parents and like sense, if my dad was angry, I could like feel it, and I would like be careful to like not make it worse for him, and I could just, a lot of us, I believe, we develop these emotional intelligence skills actually starting from childhood as like a defense mechanism. I believe a lot of us, we really focus on other people, whether it's our parents or like our family members or our siblings, when we're young, because we want to feel safe, right? And when we're in an environment where maybe our parents are not very conscious, they doing the best they can, but they weren't maybe always like giving us the affection and the love and the attention that we wanted, that we craved. So a lot of us, we kind of had to always be looking out for like the next threat and like making sure that it's safe. And so understand that you might have from your childhood, you might have, certain emotional abilities, or, even like skills that you had to develop to feel safe when you were a kid, right? That's kind of crazy, but I think it's true. I've seen it in a lot of people. I've seen it in myself that, a lot of us, we have childhood traumas, and these things that we go through as a kid kind of teach us how to, um, read energy and read the room. So I always grew up like with what I always said I had anxiety as a kid growing up, right? I always just I always just kind of felt like anxious a lot. And it really wasn't until I finished college and I was in New York City, working full time, and I take the subway every morning and every afternoon. I remember when I first got to New York City, when I first moved in and started taking the subway every day. Those subways are freaking like jam packed with people, right? I remember like the first few mornings when I was in the subway. I'm waiting for the subway, and there's just people all around me, like just tons of people, like waiting for the subway. Then you go in the subway and you hold the bar, and there's like people touching you all around you. And it was kind of a crazy experience, like just going from a small town in Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up, a town called Percy, Pennsylvania. Grew up there, and then I went from, after college, to a huge city. And what happened was I was feeling extremely anxious when I was on the subway, the first few days and weeks. And what I began to realize was I had the same experiences like going through school with like the anxiety and just feeling overwhelmed with people. And it wasn't until I was on that subway for a few days and weeks that I realized that my anxiety I was always having as a kid, it actually was not coming from me. It was coming from other people. And what I began to realize on the subway, what happened actually on the subway was I was getting so burned and so drained and so burned out and drained, because I'd be on the subway for about a half hour. I get off the subway and I would just feel like shit. I would feel tired. I would feel like groggy, and I would feel like just like dirty and gross. And it wasn't until like the subway experiences taught me that, what if I don't have all this anxiety like naturally, but what if my anxiety that I've been feeling my whole life, what if that's actually just me picking up on the energy of other people around me? And that was indeed the case, because what I did was I began to learn how to protect my energy, how to be more aware of my energy, my aura field, my energy field around us. All of us have a bubble around us. It goes from a few feet to like 6 feet, all around us. But I didn't know this at all until I was in New York City. I had to learn, okay, how do I ground myself? How do I stop getting drained and burned out from these people around me who are all miserable? Because people are, in New York City, like going to work in the mornings, it's kind of brutal because everyone's, for the most part, like pretty miserable. And I was tired of getting burned out, tired of getting drained. I was like, I got to figure this out. So what I began to learn was, I was like, wow, all this anxiety, all this, overwhelm I was feeling my whole life, it's actually, I think, because I can feel emotions. I can feel people around me, how they're feeling. And what happens is, if I don't have this boundary of like, this is me and that's them, I can take on their emotions. And this happened over and over and over again in New York City. And it happened in college and high school. And when I was a kid, I didn't know better. And I believe right now on the planet, a lot of people are realizing that they are similar, like what I'm saying, they're similar in the fact that they can feel energy. They can feel people's emotions. And let me ask you this: can AI feel emotions? At least not yet, I don't think. And so this makes us different. This makes us unique as humans, because we're able to feel emotions. We're able to be with people, be with other real humans, and we can be present with them, and we can have a conversation. We can work with them in business. We can teach them, coach them, develop them, help them to grow. And this is where, AI is great for data and strategy, and more like big more like logical like numbers and stuff. But I really believe that the human aspect of this AI will not be able to do, at least not as well as a lot of us humans can do it. So so yeah, I mean, basically, I began to learn how to protect myself with my energy. After New York City, I moved home in the end of 2018, early 2019. I began to work with restaurants. I spent 5 years working at restaurants from 2019 to 2024. And once again, I had to learn how to not get drained all the time because in my first few weeks at the restaurants, there's music playing, people are drinking alcohol, there's yelling, there's commotion, there's just kind of like pure chaos. And I had to learn how to manage my energy and how to not get, how to not take on other people's emotions. And it was difficult, but you know, I think a lot of people a lot of people say they're an empath or they're super sensitive and they kind of make it like like a bad thing, like they're a victim, like, oh, I can't go to the mall, I'm too sensitive, or I can't. It's like, no, what's really happened, actually, this is what's really happened, this is actually the truth about what's happened, is that we go through school, we go through our families, no one tells us how to manage our energy. No one teaches us how to meditate. At least I wasn't taught how to meditate through school. No one tells us how to how to regulate our emotions, how to sit with our emotions, how to, go within ourselves. And, a lot of people are having a hard time right now in the world because they don't know how to connect with people. They don't know how to slow down their own mind. Their minds are just racing and they're not able to pick up on the cues from other people, right? And this is what I'll be doing. I'll be helping a lot of companies in the future with this idea of how can we really slow down, as a leader, as a manager, if we have a company, we have a team, we have people under us, like, we have to set the example. Like, we have to be the example for our team, for our employees. And I've seen a lot of managers and leaders who don't do this because they weren't taught how to do it. They weren't taught how to slow down their mind and how to actually be present. And when you're present and you're slowed down, you can then be with someone fully and you can read their emotions and their body language and their tone and all these things. But when we're caught up in our own head, our own ego, and we're either in fear or we're just, people are always in a rush to leave the current present moment. It's just kind of the truth about what's happening on this planet. People are just in a rush. Like, I see it here in Austin, on the highway, people are just always in a rush trying to get to the next place. And we have to slow down. We have to really take a step back, and we have to be willing to have the courage to go within ourselves and to look at, like, this childhood stuff and look at, if we're getting burned out and drained, why is that, right? Why is your job, or maybe it's people around you, maybe it's your family and friends or people close to you, but you got to ask yourself, like, why am I getting drained, why am I getting burned out? And I think if you can, I'll be sharing more videos about this, I'll be sharing more content as well about grounding your energy and energy protection and just what I've done over the years. But um, I want you to know that this skill of being able to feel people's emotions and read people, it's it's a really amazing ability, and it's a gift. And I'm going to be helping people to, how do you take what seems like a curse at first when you're really sensitive and you can feel everybody's emotions, and it's like, it, at first it's like a curse because you don't know how to deal with it, you don't know how to manage it, you don't know how to actually develop it, right? And I believe all of us have these different, kind of abilities. And it might be a little woo woo, but it's you can look into, Joe Dispenza's work. There's a lot of people that are, you know merging this gap between science and spirituality. And going forward, the people who are able to really connect with, whether it's their customers, their clients, their employees. You could even be like your family, people close to you. This is going to be in higher demand going forward. And like I said, like, AI can do the numbers and AI can do the data, but can AI go to someone? Can AI go in front of a group of people? A CEO or a board of directors? Can AI present and communicate and do that human connection stuff that we can do? I don't believe so. And maybe in a few years it can, but I doubt it'll be able to match, like the best consultants, the best coaches, the best speakers, because human is human. And we really have to, as a society, we have to be able to develop our spirituality, our emotional intelligence, because if we don't, if we abuse AI, if we let it out of control, it could be bad. We have to be responsible with this technology. We have to be grown up to use it. We have to be like mature enough. And a lot of people, I don't care how old you are, maybe you're 30, 40, 50, age is just a number. A lot of people are old, like they're adults, but emotionally, they're still like 10 years old, right? Because we have these experiences when we're young. We have these childhood experiences that kind of can stunt our maturity emotionally. And it's all about having the courage, like I said, to go back in time and to look at yourself and to look at, you know, how you are the way you are. But one of the best things that I have done for myself was meditation, and I believe that one of the best ways that you can develop your emotional intelligence, and you can also become more stronger, like in your core energy, which means you're not going to be as drained and burned out because you're going to like know yourself. You're going to be more present. You're going to be more like in your body. The best way to do that, I believe, is to have a daily practice where you slow down like every single day, once a day. Take 10 minutes before work, sit on the ground on some carpet and just cross your legs and just sit there. And you can just sit and just be. Just simple as that can really help you to develop your emotional intelligence, your emotional body. But that's really all I have for this video. Definitely subscribe down below and like leave me a comment or shoot me a DM on Instagram. Like, what do you want to see me talk about? Because I want to share with you what I've been doing, for myself over the last 7, 8 years to really become a better speaker, a better consultant, coach, and just what I kind of have been working on. Now I have a son, I have a family now, so it's been a crazy last couple of years, but I want to be able to share with you kind of what my family's doing, what we're doing. We do have some goals to maybe lead some retreats in the future. To help people to grow and to really do some hands-on work. So that's kind of in the works. But yeah, thanks for watching, my friend. I hope you have an amazing day. Take care. Much love. I'll see you later.